Hello ladies and gents, welcome to a Master League tutorial with your host SpoonyPizzas. So Master League, for those that are coming from FIFA maybe, or you're new to the PES series, Master League is basically the career mode. So this is where you're going to become a manager, you're going to have jobs of signing players, training players, managing players, choosing the positions, formations, tactics, and then playing the actual game. So let's just jump straight into the Master League. So all you need to do is go to this little symbol here and click New. Okay, so you've got two options. You can play with the Master League original lineup, which is a bunch of fake teams, or you can go with the club team lineup. And if you've imported your option file as per my tutorials, then you'll be able to have the real kits and clubs and all the rest of it imported as well. So here you get to choose which league you want to start in. And as it says there, your contract is renewed on a yearly basis. So you can move clubs after a year if you want to, or even if during the January transfer window, you can even switch clubs as well. So going to pick Manchester United from the Premier League for starters, but like I said, you can choose any club you want, and you can move clubs. Now you can't create your own manager this year. You can only choose from the list here. So Johan Cruyff, Diego Maradona, Zico, Romario, Bebeto, Roberto Carlos, Lothar Matthäus, Ruud Gullit, and a bunch of other ones who I believe are fakes. So I'm sure that doesn't look like Samuel Eto'o anyway. Okay, so I'm going to choose, let's go for Zico for a change. I've chosen Maradona and Johan Cruyff in the past. So now you get to input your details. You can change the name if you want, and you can change the nationality if you want, and you can also choose what he wears. Again, you will see clips of your manager on the touchline during the actual gameplay. So starting from top, so we've got transfer frequency. This is how often transfers by the computer happen. So how often they sign players. If you have a fairly high, it's obviously going to be very high. They're going to be very active in the transfer market. Whereas if you set it low, then most of the players are going to stay at their relative clubs. So I tend to leave this at normal. It seems like a good balance so far. Haven't seen anything crazy like we had last year, where Liverpool literally sold their entire squad in the first window to Leicester. Then we got the negotiation difficulty. So this is how easy or hard as you want to make it in terms of signing players. I tend to leave that normal as well. Starting budget. Now, I did a comparison yesterday with the two Master Leagues. So I had Manchester United, and they had a starting budget normal, and they started with about £116 million. And then I had Wolves with a normal starting budget as well. And I didn't think it would be 116 million, because that would just be daft. But they actually set Wolves to about 40 million. I think it's about £44 million. So pretty realistic. So that's why I'd leave that as normal if I were you, unless you want to, go full Oil FC or Man City, then you can go to large. First window transfers. So whether you want the first window of the transfer window to be open at the start of the game or not. Then you got salary display, so you can have it weekly or annual. I tend to leave it annual. It's just easier to manage. And then we've got superstar difficulty. This is how difficult the game's going to be. I've been playing this quite a while, this series, and I would say Superstar is a very, very hard challenge, even for myself. You may have seen my Wolves games. It's there's nothing in the games. Now, would recommend, if you are going to play on a high difficulty, and maybe you are an advanced user, you've been playing PES all your life and you're on Superstar difficulty, I would recommend boosting the match time to 15 minutes. You might think that's too long, but honestly, it really does play out like a real game. So you have to take your time. You can't you can't try and rush and force the opponent or the AI to make mistakes. Just spamming long through balls isn't going to work for you. Currency unit. So what type of currency you want to use in the game, and then stops during the transfer window. So I would leave this at only when there is progress, because that's probably the best. Last thing you want to do is every single day you have to keep pressing X just to jump a few days or 5 days. Only when there's progress. So that means basically, say for instance, I went to sign a player and I start negotiations for Jadon Sancho, for example. the next update, usually 3 days from when I start those negotiations, it will pause automatically for me and say, hey, there's an update here. We need to, carry on these discussions now. Whereas if you did every day, you'd have to keep pressing X through the day. So it'd just take forever. Once you've set that, click OK. And then you're presented with the cutscene. I will skip this because I'll let you guys play it out for the first time. But basically, you can set your objectives with your board members. So here we go, setting the goals. They both basically say, what's your aim? So, being Manchester United, we should be looking to make it into the UEFA Champions League, which was probably about right. You don't want to set your expectations too high. Otherwise, if you don't meet those targets, you could get sacked. So don't go too low either. We can finish in the top half of the league. That would be that would be a bit of a mistake. So I'm going to actually say that and see what they say about that. Just for the lols. I want to finish in the top half of the league, specifically the 8th position or higher. In order to achieve this, we're going to need to focus our efforts on strengthening the squad this season. Oh man, I wonder what the response to that is going to be. I'm not going to be happy with that, I don't think. Okay, you're sacked. Cheers. I'll take my coffee. I'll take my Starbucks coffee and get out of here. Seems a rather modest objective, but I suppose you have your reasons. Let's aim for that then. Oh, fair enough. 8th. Quality. Whatever direction you think is best, the coaching team is behind you. Wow. To be honest, Man United this season, probably by 6th or 7th, probably behind Everton and Leicester at the rate they're going. And then we get to meet the press. Again, I'm going to skip this again. What are your league's title chances? We're far from favourites. I want to thank you, the chairperson, everyone who's played a part to get me here. Regarding the title chances, I think it's a little presumptuous to consider us as contenders in this first year of mine. There are other teams who are primed to contend from the get-go. However, I have a plan in place to put us in contention to contend for silverware in years to come. What style of football do you want to play this season? I want to see clean, sportsman-like football. Okay, so yeah, you get to meet the press. I'm not sure what impact this is going to have, but I imagine talking to the board and when you have your player sort of meetings, those are the ones that are going to really have an impact. So then you get some information just telling you where to go for stuff, and this is what I'm going to tell you. So what we're doing is start from left to right. So we've got team management, we've got your game plan. Check out my game plan tutorial for everything in here. Basically, I cover all the things in here on how to set up your team and everything. Negotiations. This is a good place to start. Once you've figured out your team, your lineup, and you've got your game plan set, I always jump into my team. And what I would recommend doing is all the players you want to keep, go to transfer policy and click refusal. So that means that no one's going to come in and offer for those players. And it's a good idea to do that for all the players you want to keep. Why do you do that? Is because otherwise you're going to get offers for players you want to keep and you just have to keep rejecting them. And the players that you want to sell are probably going to get ignored. So, if I want to get rid of Chris Smalling, if I'm desperate for money and I desperately want to get rid of him, I'll put him on a transfer list. Okay? If I come across a player like Ashley Young, say I think, he's actually, he's a really vital part of my squad. I don't really want to sell, but if a big offer comes in, I will accept. Then you just tick the open to reasonable offers box. And then say, for instance, we've got a player who I want to get rid of really quickly, but I would be happy with clubs either meeting the asking price or a little bit more. Then you tick both of these boxes. If you want to loan a player out, you can literally just go down transfer policy and click the place on loan list. And lastly, we have the ability to release players. If you release a player, it will take out 1.8 million out of your budget, but you'll be compensated in the salary column with his salary. So you can just right bumper and you can look at his current annual salary. So you'll be getting 3 million into your salary pocket. Okay, we have team role effects. Now what you're going to find is that Pogba is a playmaker. So you can see there, team spirit increases more if captain. So it's important to sometimes look at these and then you'll know who to apply the captaincy to. So if I make him a captain, you'll see his team spirit boost, which I'll show you in a second. Let's just show you that right now, just so you can see how that looks. So you can see up in the top right hand corner here where it says 84. If I left click my or click my left arrow stick down, you'll see it's gone to 92. That's the team spirit, and team spirit is very important in this game. It's going to determine how well everyone sort of behaves tactically and plays. It's very, very important. So that was my team in terms of your negotiations. Scouting. Now I'd recommend setting up your scouts, whether you want to leave it as bolster weak spots or whether you want to search for a particular position. What I tend to do is if I'm looking for everything or anything, everything and anything, then I'll just do something like this. So I'll set it up like that. But if you want something more specific, so I go, actually, well, I want someone from England and I want a centre back and I want to focus on overall rating, then you can absolutely do that. So if you are looking for a specific position or maybe a specific player, then definitely do that. If you're looking for someone still developing or a utility player who can play many positions, then you can select the things to focus on. I tend to leave those both of these areas as none though, and just ignore the transfer budget. Otherwise you'll get players that, you know, if you've got a low budget, you might not be able to sign them. Okay, so that's the sort of scouting, and with the scouting what you will find is you will get a bigger discount on if you find players through this source than if you use the advanced search, which I'm going to show you. Then we have listed players. We haven't got any in there yet because we haven't searched for anyone yet, but I'll show you that in a second. Other teams, so this is where your negotiations will take place when you actually find a player and try to sign them. So your negotiations will go in here. Well, let's go to the youth team. So this is your youth team setup. So you can sort of see players. I tend to sort by overall rating for starters. So it's you've got this nice way to sort your players from the highest ranked. And then if you right bumper, you can sort of see their stats and you know, see if they're going to fit into your play. And if you want to promote them, just press X on them and then either click sign to promote them to your club. You can only negotiate 5 players at a time. That includes your transfer players, so take that into account when you are signing youth. I tend to leave the youth until the very last day, maybe, once I've got all my other signings in, because you don't want to fill up your squad and then realize you can't make any further signings. So the advanced search. So what I tend to do here is, if I've got a position that I'm looking for specifically, I'll tick that. And then you can also search down here for transfer lists, loan lists, no renewal or free agents as well. That's quite a good idea to always check this pool at the start of a season, because you never know, you might pick up some good quality players, like maybe Tevez on a free transfer. Yeah, he's 35, but if you've got a low rated club, you also have a release fee as well. So you can see that only 800,000 for Carlos Tevez as a release fee. You got affection, so how does he feel about your club or coming to your club? And you can see that contract ends. You can see it's his final season, which is why he's on this list. So if I was to look at those transfer listed, you can see Gabriel Jesus. I'm like, oh, actually, he's good, but I just want to add him to a list of players that I'm gonna sort of approach maybe at the end of the day. So just, you know, oh, Malcolm as well. Let's add him as well. Jadon Sancho, lovely. You know, Danny Ceballos. Okay, so where I've added those to a list, you're now going to see these in my listed players. So you can see those there. So you can always review them. You know, you can go through the list, find out which players you want. And then when you're happy with the player you want, you go, oh, well, yeah, let's negotiate for Gabriel Jesus. So we've got a transfer fee set as 63 million. Now you can offer lower if you want to. You can add a selling on option. So if, for instance, I was to sell, I bought Jesus and I sell him for 100 million. If I've got a selling on option of 50%, that would mean he would sell for 50 million. 50 million would then go to Man City if I sign him for Man City. So if I sell him for 100 million, 50% of that fee will go to Man City. Okay, so that's the selling option. And if you want to trade a player, sometimes it doesn't actually say anymore. You used to have on the right hand side, you used to have bars to tell you what the chances of actually swapping a player. But say, for instance, I want to swap him with Lukaku. We can tick that option. And then you notice the transfer fee is now 0. Because obviously they're happy with... we don't need to offer any funds in, so we're going to do a straight swap. Then it comes down to salary. So this is managing the salary of the player. What I would recommend doing is trying to lower the salary, lower the release fee, but boost all these up as well. Because these will come out of your transfer budget, and what you're going to find is your salary budget is going to be hard to manage. So I'd recommend sort of setting up like this if you want to lower their salary. Transfer negotiations will go back and forth, so sometimes you'll go, well, I'm only going to offer you 2.5 million for your salary, and they might come back and say, well, actually we want 2.8 million. So that's another consideration. Once you're happy, just click OK and click yes. Okay, so we've shown you how to negotiate, showed how to scout, showed how to sell players, gone through the youth team. Next up is training. Now, what I would recommend is if there's any balanced in here, certainly if you've got players that are important to you, make sure they're actually set to something else other than balanced. De Gea is not a good example because he can only train in a few, but say for instance Pogba was balanced up here, I would always recommend setting it to one of these. And these do have an impact on the actual pitch as well. And I will be covering player styles in another video in quite some detail because that is what people want to see. And at the bottom you have got focus training, which is always worth using once they've got a play style. So if you look at your player, you can see here Paul Pogba on the right hand side, you've got playing style as box to box. So if I want to change his play style, if I train something like, say, the Destroyer, over games, his playing style will change from box to box to the Destroyer. Okay. And obviously on the right hand side, you can see the arrows. That's where he's going to receive his training. If I'm happy with box to box, but I'm not happy with how or where he's being trained up to, you can focus the training. And you could say, well, actually, I want to increase his passing. His passing is not the best. I want to increase his shooting a little bit, as well as his defense. Okay, so you get 5 points to split across any of these. And then just tap OK. So that's the focus training. Skill training. So this is where you learn various skills. I always jump down to the ones sort of from long range drive all the way down to pinpoint crossing, because those are quite important, those ones. You know, like dipping shot, acrobatic finishing. You know, if you're going to put a lot of balls into the box, then you perhaps want acrobatic finishing, first time shot. So those are quite important. And then if you are good at skills, then start applying some of these. The ones I would recommend starting with is scissor feint, Marseille turn, double touch, step on skill control as well. The rest you probably won't use it all that often, but those are some of the most effective ones that you can use. That's skill training. Youth team training, much like the full team training, you can set these up if you want. I wouldn't recommend doing this unless when you're after playing a few seasons, what you get are regens. So basically players that have retired that come back, and you can put those in your squad as well. But you will find them dropping in here. And if you haven't got room or chance to promote them, just make sure you set them up with a playing style that may be useful in the future. So maybe a creative playmaker for Harrington. Then we can edit your squad numbers. So here, if I want to make Phil Jones my number 7, I can absolutely do that. If I want to make Sanchez number 29, I can absolutely do that. So just tap X and literally just move them around to wherever you want if you want to swap people around. Team info. So we've got the schedule. So this is who we're going to be playing over the next few days. If you tap X, you can see who else is playing on that same day. So that's quite useful, especially when you got a match day to see, who are rivals playing. Don't forget to use your right bumper or left bumpers, R1 and L2, L1 and R1. So if I want to look at Man City, who they're playing, they're playing Aston Villa, so they're probably going to win. Therefore, we want to try and start strong against Arsenal. Maybe that could be your thinking. Squad list. Don't tend to use this all that often. You can check on their nicknames, team roles. Again, I very rarely use squad list. Player status, again, another one I don't use. It just tells you what national team your player's with. Team role list, again, not that important in my opinion, but it just gives you an idea of who, what sort of status your players have. So you got youth prospects, you got Scott McTominay, Pereira, Greenwood, etc., and you've got different levels as they progress. And then club performance. This is one I do actually check on. Look at your player results, how many games they play, assists, goals, man of the match, yellow cards, red cards, etc., etc. Then we have manager's office, the messages. So this is actually quite new. This replaces sort of the pop-up messages you got before the game, so you can actually, go back and read what people are telling you, from agents to executives to scouts, as well as your targets. Management career. This is where you're going to find your past glory. So this is going to be basically your trophy cabinet. Results and squad list. Again, something I don't really use, but in here you'll be seeing players signed and sold, as well as your results. You got your favourite player lists. So at the end of every season, they ask you who's your favourite player, and then you just sort of say, oh yeah, Pogba played well, he's my favourite, and then you build this up over years and years and years of playing. When a player regens, if you had the old player selected before, and then you select the regen to be your favourite player, it will overwrite your previously. So if I had Messi as my favourite player, and then he regens and I have Messi again, and if I make him my favourite player again, it just overwrites the old Lionel Messi. Then manager offers. This is where you can request to move to another club. So you can either transfer request and say, you know what, I want to go to Brighton, and that will leave those in negotiations in progress, and then they'll come back to you and say, yep, you got the job, or no, you haven't. You can't do it for national teams. You just have to wait for the national team's offers to come through naturally. Club account balance. This is pretty self-explanatory, but it just gives you an overview of where your funds are coming from. again, not something I would use. Budget settings. Now this is actually important. I will touch on this more later, but I'd recommend setting all these to receiver's salary budget, and then the contracts options is pay with transfer budget, and that will help you, like I showed you earlier when signing a player. So the contract options will come out of your transfer budget. That way you're boosting your salary budget, which tends to be a lot smaller than your transfer budget. Obviously, favorite players. This is a quick link to your favorite players, I think. Oh no, this is something different. This is something I've not seen before, so this is new to me. You can add 11 players to your list of favorite players. Simply add. Okay, so let's add all those. Not actually do anything. Okay, well, I'm not sure what that does, to be honest. Just thought it was a quick link to the favorite players. Database, so competition info. So this is basically, you know, what leagues and titles are available in the various countries. Obviously, with the PES Universe option file, let's put all the correct competitions in. UEFA Champions League, UEFA Super Cup, so on and so forth. Team info. Again, if you want to find information out about a team, like who their players are, what the game plan is for a certain team, maybe you want to analyze before the match, you can check that out. Transfer market news. It's not one I tend to use too often, but you can see where players are going. So you can see there, Arthur's being sold to PSG for 64 million. Club rankings. So this is basically where you're ranked in the world of football. So Barcelona at the top, Manchester City second. You know, Manchester United dropping down that list very rapidly. And then national team ranking as well. So it's similar, but for the national teams. And then we have save, our system to save the game. Always enable the auto save whenever you're starting a new Master League. And then choose a save slot. You only get 5 save slots. Almost said slave slots. Save slots. Okay. But yeah, just make sure you do that, otherwise you've just wasted all your progress. You can save your team data that you can use to play online as well. So if you get in a bunch of superstars, say for instance I create the World 11 at Manchester United, for example, got Mbappe, Ronaldo, Messi, you know, so on and so forth. I can save that team data, and then I can take that online just in the friendly team play lobbies and play against other players with that team. However, please note that any development, so say for instance I take Rashford and make him, I don't know, give him an overall of 105 through training, and he's got 99 speed, 99 acceleration, 99 shooting, 99 ball control, then if I was to save it, what happens is that development does not take place. It basically takes the player at their base stats, so just note that for future. Import a My Club player, so you can actually import players from My Club as part of your team. So here you go, I've got Ronaldinho and I got Lothar Matthäus, so I can add them in if I want to. Then we have general settings. So if you want to change, if you don't like the transfer frequency, you can change that. Negotiations, starting budget, as we covered earlier in the game. If you want to reduce the amount of time spent or the difficulty, then you can absolutely do that. Actually, I don't think you can change the difficulty. Yes, you can. Yeah, difficulty and match time. So if you want to adjust those, you can absolutely do that. Anyway, that's it for me, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.